Hello and welcome to our review of Veronica Mars. I'm Paul,
I'm Dave.
and this week we are discussing the episode "Charlie Don't Surf." This episode originally aired October 24th, 2006. Let us start off with the number one song in America this week, Dave. Any guesses?
Again, just with the amount of time, I'm thinking that the song from last week might have been superseded, but the only other thought that it might have been another song that was from Justin Timberlake because he was supposedly big at the time.
So it is not Sexy Back. It is, in fact, a different song by an entirely different artist. It is Moneymaker by Ludacris featuring Pharrell.
Oh, no. Yeah, it somewhat tracks. Again, title sounds familiar, but not completely placing on the song. But especially with this time and whatnot, it most likely is one of those bloody earworms.
Yeah, I don't remember this song either. And it,
Hmm.
eh, I'm not the biggest Pharrell fan, so.
Hmm.
Moving along, number one film in America this week, Dave. Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. It is a seasonally appropriate one.
Uh,
Part of a huge franchise that would continue to dominate Halloween time for a few more years.
oh, well, it's that. Uh,
And arguably its lore became incomprehensible at a certain point.
oh. Well, 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 with that additional clue, the only one that I'm thinking that would somewhat match is the Saw series, but I'm not exactly sure which Saw it is.
It is Saw 3.
Oh, okay.
It is Saw 3. Yes, the Saw franchise started off very strong, and then I feel it becomes incomprehensible after a few movies because they kill off John Kramer, and then they have to start doing all these like flashback sequences and stuff, and oh boy.
Hmm.
Uh,
Like,
yeah, good.
nah, just sort of thinking with the thought. I'm not super knowledgeable with the Saw franchise for supposedly the obvious reasons, but case of somewhat understand them for their concept and trailers that they sort of show off with the particular sorts of stuff. But yeah, from the sounds of it, the case of if there's a case of important character dying off, and the case of just doing flashbacks and whatnot for filling in stories for sequels, it's just kind of the case of, ooh, you guys are taking the very windy path for things, aren't you?
They most definitely did. All right, let's move on to video games. So, October 18th, if you had a PC or a Macintosh, you
And
could.
they were things that existed.
They were, but Apple people hate when you call them Macintoshes for some reason. So I love calling them Macintoshes.
Hmm.
You could pick up a little game called Football Manager 2007.
Again, somewhat understandable, but I think it's also the question of if you're just going to make a sports game, why would you just make a sports game instead of the sport management simulator?
See, I love a good sports management sim. I just think there's something really fun about them, and if they're done well.
Yeah, because I think that's usually the biggest trick with it.
Yes, there are a lot that are just like cheap cash ins, but there are some that are very, very fun. October 18th, if you had a Xbox 360 and were buying games on Xbox Live Arcade, you could pick up Lumions. I don't know if you're familiar with Lumions.
Not specifically. I've most likely seen it going through the old Xbox Live store, trying to search for particular things, but not enough to actually go ahead and play through this particular one. Though, from the sounds of it, it's sounding like a Tetris knockoff.
Kind of. Um, it's It's similar to Tetris, but it's different enough that I wouldn't call it a knockoff.
Oh, okay. In the case that Tetris couldn't look at it and be like, Sue! Push the button.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's a very, I don't know how to explain it until you've played it.
Yeah. Always the fun thing with those sorts of things.
Also on October 18th, if you had a PC and you were in North America, you could pick up Jaws Unleashed, which hopefully
So
you
people on the
didn't.
computers can enjoy the Jaws fun.
Yeah. October 19th, if you had a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Contact.
Okay.
Uh,
Ooh, interesting. Something from Grasshopper Manufacturers that they worked on.
yes, I actually bought this game not long after it came out.
Hmm.
I don't think I ever finished it, but it was recommended to me by somebody who worked at EB Games here, and I was like, that
Hmm.
sounds cool, because he said it was like Earthbound, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll give that a try.
Hmm.
I remember it being quite
Nice and
fun.
interesting.
It never got a sequel, and I don't think it's been ported to anything, so it might be kind of hard to find and play now, though, unfortunately.
Annoyance.
Yes. Moving along, also on October 19th, if you had a PS2 or Xbox, you could get Destroy All Humans 2.
I jumping to the game that's on just about everything. Except maybe the toaster. We'll have to double check.
This is a style of game that I don't think really exists anymore.
Yeah, sadly enough, it's true. Like, I think even the closest thing that I could think of would be supposedly related to Just Cause or that familiar sort of series, but even then, it kind of went in different directions.
I don't even mean that specifically. I mean, like, THQ was the master of what I call the double A games. Like, where
Hmm,
they sold a bit cheaper than, like, your AAA games. Like, they'd be, like, 10 or 15 bucks less. And they weren't, like, quite as polished, but there were some, like, cool ideas in them. Like, it was the kind of games where it's like they're not as polished as the big AAA titles, so they're a bit cheaper, but they're doing stuff in these games that the AAA games probably wouldn't attempt. They were kind of a fun
true.
little.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is no matter what, with the fact that it may be simpler, supposedly have risk of glitchiness and other sorts of stuff like that, they were a blast to play when you did get to them.
Yes, there were a lot of these games that were really fun, but I feel like that is not something that really exists anymore.
Yeah, unless something is super high tech or manages to stay within their pay amounts within company lines and whatnot, yeah, it just doesn't seem to stick nowadays.
Yeah, it's a super big AAA game or it's an indie game, and there's kind of nothing in between those anymore.
Hmm.
Anyway, moving on, still on October 19th, if you had a PS2, you could pick up Disney's Kim Possible, What's the Switch?
Yeah, because that was also a thing.
Were you a Kim Possible fan?
I think to the extent that I watched the episodes whenever they were on or managed to see them on television, and it wasn't anything that I switched off of while they were playing, but not as super fanish as the supposed people are online.
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen an episode of Kim Possible. Anyway, moving on, if you had a PSP on October 20th, you could pick up Medal of Honor Heroes.
Yeah, still a case that I've never touched the Medal of Honor series, but also the case of, haha, war games. Not interested.
On October 22nd, if you had an Xbox 360, on the Xbox Live Arcade, you could pick up Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3.
Which would make the supposed people who enjoyed Mortal Kombat or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 very happy.
Yeah, I mean, probably. It's a Mortal Kombat game.
Management.
October 23rd, if you had an Xbox 360, you could pick up Cars.
Because, of course, it was Cars, the Pixar movie, in case they needed a video game at some point.
Yes. Also on October 23rd, if you had a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Magical Star Sign.
This one again, saw it around, but never managed to try out the game myself.
Okay. And also on October 23rd, if you had a PSP, you could pick up Work Time Fun, or WTF. Looks like it's just a collection of mini games.
Which, on the one hand, I'm not too surprised, but also kind of the case of what were some people thinking? But if it supposedly got them $1 in some sort of case, then can you complain? Supposedly,
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't look like something I would have enjoyed. Anyway,
hmm.
October 24th. My God, did everybody release games on this day?
Hmm.
On PC, you could pick up Dark Messiah of Might and Magic or Fear Extraction Point. Um, those certainly were games, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Fear was
Hmm.
Extraction Point was the expansion for the first Fear game. But did you ever play any of the Fear games? I think there was 2 or 3 of them.
I can specifically remember that there was up to at least a 3-1, but it was also kind of the case of it turned out not so great because, gosh darn it, they used the 3 as the E within fear, and what the flip were they thinking?
Okay. I think I own both of them, but I've never played them.
Mm.
Also, on October 24th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Juka and the Monophonic Menace. I have no idea what this is.
Kind of action adventure platformer kind of thing that was on the GBA. Again, remember seeing it, but not enough that I went out and actually picked it up.
Ready. Also on the 24th, if you had a PC, PS2, Xbox, Xbox 360, or a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Which is pretty much understandable because it is a Marvel game with a whole bunch of superheroes that you can run around and fight in a whole bunch of little dungeon things. The shoot, I'm getting the style mixed up with, but there was similar to the style of like the other dungeon crawlers. The only thing that I'm thinking of is like one of the Diablo games, but there are certainly others that would be better examples for this.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Also on the 24th, if you had a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Nacho Libre.
Because that movie was popular at a time.
It sure was. Also on the 24th, if you had a PS2, GameCube, Game Boy Advance, or a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Nicktoons Battle for Volcano Island.
Yeah. On the one hand, I'm mildly happy that something like this kind of happened, but also the case of how the flip did this happen?
No idea.
Yeah.
If you had a PC, PS2, or Xbox 360, you could pick up Phantasy Star Universe.
Because it was most certainly a thing, but not on this side of the water.
Yeah. If you had a PC, PS2, or Xbox, you could pick up Reservoir Dogs.
Again, understandable, but also the slight questioning of why does this exist? But also the case of I was probably too young at the time or not knowledgeable enough at the time for this particular one.
Yeah, I'm also in the why does this exist kind of category. I like Reservoir Dogs as a movie. I just had no desire to play the game.
Hmm.
Also on the 24th, if you had a Game Boy Advance or a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Scourge Hive, which is also a game that I owned, but I got it much later out of like a $20 bin.
Yeah, understandable. Like just looking at it, it's the case of I've probably seen it, but it has been blurred with the 3,527 other things I've seen throughout my life. It's like, haha, I know nothing.
Yeah, I don't remember it being like overly memorable.
Hmm.
Also on the 24th, if you had a PC, you could pick up Star Wars Empire at War Forces of Corruption, which was an expansion pack for Empire at War.
Hmm. Yeah.
Also on the 24th, if you had a PS2, you could pick up Tokobot.
Which, weirdly enough, despite the fact that I've only probably seen this once or twice, it immediately struck that I've seen this before. But the case of I have no idea what this is.
Also on the 24th, if you had a PS2, Xbox, or GameCube, you could pick up Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Double Agent.
Because
Apparently,
everybody needs to experience the double agent.
apparently. And finally, on the 24th, if you had a Nintendo DS, you could pick up Touch Detective.
Again, understandable, though it seems fairly simple from the point from there. But again, with DS functionality, having a point and click game, it kind of makes sense.
It does. It does make perfect sense. So let us move on to the episode. Okay. Logan comes over for dinner at Veronica's house, and Keith becomes increasingly annoyed when Logan refuses to answer some questions. Because,
Well, case of he could supposedly answer the questions, but Veronica definitely steps in to try and stop it.
yes, she does give Logan a list of rules that he is not allowed to mention certain things.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. Veronica goes into Parker's room where Veronica reveals that she was raped as well. A journalist interviews Parker while Logan discusses his finances with his accountant. Logan asks for Veronica in searching through records in an attempt to catch the accountant embezzling from him. Meanwhile, a woman asks Keith to investigate her husband, who may have been having an affair. Wallace informs Veronica that there was a Pi Sigma fraternity party the night of every rape. And hey, Wallace is back. Not for long, though, because he's barely in this episode still.
Oh.
Later, Dick asks Veronica to prove that the fraternity is innocent, and Veronica agrees to infiltrate the fraternity. Keith goes to see the husband. Keith sees the husband getting into a car with some other women. He contacts Harmony, the woman, and presents the evidence. Veronica talks to the fraternity boys, and one of them tells her information that leads to her suspecting a boy named Chip, who was handing out drinks at the night of the most recent party. Keith and Harmony flirt, and Harmony shows a good amount of true romantic interest in Keith. Logan's family has been donating $10,000 a month to Aaron's Kids, which Veronica learns is not an actual charity. Veronica talks to Chip, who says that he was with another girl, who admits he admits that he was with another girl, but saying that she'll never openly admit that she was with him. Veronica turns her suspicion on Dick, who, while yes, his name is apt, doesn't seem like a bad guy necessarily. After doing more digging, Veronica says that the money is going to Logan's illegitimate brother, Charlie Stone. Parker insults Veronica for supposedly working for the fraternity. Keith catches Harmony's husband kissing another woman. After talking to one of the other rape victims, Veronica discusses Claire with a slightly offbeat clerk who says that Claire went in with a guy. Logan meets Charlie, and they connect over surfing. However, Veronica notices some inconsistencies at Charlie's private school job. Veronica learns that Charlie is in fact a reporter who is doing a story on Logan, and Logan punches him. Fair enough. Keith tells Harmony that her husband was not in fact cheating after all, as he has a recording of him rebuking the woman who kissed him and is like, no, I'm married, I'm not going to do that. Veronica obtains proof that another person, not one of the fraternity members, was with Claire the night she was raped. While retrieving Logan's watch that he gave to this fake half-brother, Veronica learns that Logan's actual half-brother did not betray him to the journalist.
The case of a supposed tracking system that wired the call from the call he sent to the reporter as well as to the phone.
Yes, the journalist was tapping his phones.
Yes.
Yes. So what do we think of this episode?
On whole, it's interesting. I wouldn't say that there was super too much with it, at least sort of working on building the case of the story, as well as the one or two side things that sort of happened along with it. In case of there was the one or two things that were just kind of but surprisingly enough, there was the one or two things that mildly got a good chuckle and whatnot out of me, which was um, Dick that came to Veronica and was asking for help for the fraternity. Just the case of, wow, it's been forever. I've never been to your house. I think there was the time that you dropped off a flaming bag in front of the door, and the case of um, giving the information of her pay, information and whatnot for doing the job. And then the case of, and then you have to leave immediately. He just booked it out the door. It's like, okay, thank you, and ran off. And it's like, hee hee, that dick.
Yes, he is a dick.
And I think the additional thing was Veronica speaking with the store clerk about the information of the rape and whatnot. Just end of all the discussion he goes through. Everybody happy? And just nice little cute thing. It's like, oh man, need to possibly get a voice clip of it.
Yes. Do you have any suspects on who it might be?
Again, don't specifically recognize the particular person within the photo from there. It's also kind of the case of how the show sort of works, that it gives at least a couple particular people to keep an eye on, or that supposedly would have motives. And whether the case would sort of be, I wouldn't be surprised if it was someone within the fraternity house, but they were just using an additional person or someone outside of a house as an alibi, but nothing I could specifically put a name to.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, if there's nothing else about this episode, you will enjoy the title of the next episode, Dave, because it is President Evil. So just a bit of a
On
heads.
one hand, I am intrigued, but also the case of, what are they thinking?
In this episode, Veronica is going to investigate when two masked men rob a Halloween party and steal Veronica's necklace from Lily Kane. Meanwhile, Keith helps Dean Odell find the biological father of his stepson, the only person who can give his stepson a life-saving bone marrow transplant. So, yeah, it's going to be... some stuff's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If there's nothing else, I've been Paul.
And I've been Dave.